The war had ended, but peace had not yet begun. Stars that once burned with fire now looked down upon silence and scars. The mighty fleets of two species, humans and Threxians, had turned their guns quiet, their soldiers broken, and their hearts empty. For years, humanity and the Threxian Empire had fought for worlds that neither could hold. Thousands of ships were lost, millions of lives gone. But now, all that remained was the echo of pain and the fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, they could stop fighting. It was in that fragile moment that Elias Reed, a human messenger, was chosen. He was not a hero, not anymore. Once he had been a pilot in the war, known for his courage in impossible battles. But when his ship was shot down and his friends were gone, Elias had changed. The fire inside him had cooled into something gentler, something that wanted to heal rather than destroy. And so Earth sent him, not as a warrior, but as a messenger of peace. His ship, the Dawn Whisper, arrived at the Threxian capital world, Vornikar, a planet of molten gold and endless spires. The sky shimmered like a living flame, and the air smelled faintly of iron and ash. Elias stood by the viewing window, his reflection staring back at him, a tired man with eyes that had seen too much death and still refused to give up hope. When the docking clamps engaged, Elias took a deep breath. He knew what waited for him beyond those airlocks. Suspicion, anger, maybe even hatred. But he also knew that this mission was humanity's last chance to mend what was broken. He stepped out into the grand hall of the Threxian palace, surrounded by towering alien guards. They were tall, strong, their scales glinting like blades in the torchlight. Their golden eyes followed him, unblinking, as he walked across the marble floor. Each step echoed in the vast silence. At the end of that hall sat Queen Zariel of Threxia, ruler of the Threxian Empire, commander of 1,000 fleets and survivor of the war that had nearly ended her kind. She was unlike anything Elias had ever seen. Her scales shimmered with shades of silver and violet, catching the light like living armor. Her crown seemed to grow naturally from her head, as if it were part of her body. But it was her eyes that struck him the most. They burned with the strength of a warrior and the sorrow of a mother who had lost too much. When he finally stood before her, he bowed deeply, lowering his head in respect. The hall was silent except for the hum of energy in the air. "I bring Earth's message," Elias said softly. The queen's voice, when she spoke, was smooth like running water, but sharp like glass. "Speak, human." Elias took out a small crystal from a pouch. It glowed softly, projecting a blue image of Earth's peace emblem, two hands reaching for each other, surrounded by a ring of light. "Humanity seeks peace," Elias said. "The war has taken everything from both our peoples. We wish to rebuild, not in dominance but in understanding." The queen's expression did not change. Her long tail curled slightly behind her as she rose from her throne and walked slowly toward him. The sound of her claws against the marble echoed through the room. "You speak of peace," she said, stopping only a few steps away. "Yet your fleets burned our colonies. You destroyed our children's skies." Elias met her gaze. "I know," he said quietly, "and I was there. I saw what we did. I saw what both sides became. That's why I came, not to ask for forgiveness, but to offer a chance to start again." The queen studied him. Her eyes seemed to pierce through his words, searching for lies, for weakness. But all she found was pain, and something deeper, regret. "What makes you believe peace is possible?" she asked. Elias smiled faintly, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Because I've seen humans change. We make mistakes, terrible ones, but we learn. We grow. Maybe that's our only strength." A strange silence followed. Even the guards looked uneasy, as if waiting for the queen's command. Finally, Zariel turned her head slightly, her tone unreadable. "You are bold, human. Some might call it foolish." "Maybe," Elias said. "But sometimes foolish hope is all we have left. For a moment she stared at him, and something in her expression softened, a small crack in the armor of a queen. Then she turned back toward her throne. "Your message is heard," she said at last. "You may depart at dawn." Elias bowed once more. "Thank you, Your Majesty." As he left the hall, he felt the weight of her gaze on his back. It wasn't hatred, not entirely. There was something else there. Something curious. Something that made him uneasy, though he didn't yet know why. That night, Elias stood on the palace balcony, looking out at the alien city. Rivers of molten light flowed between crystal towers, and the sky shimmered with twin moons. He thought about Earth, about the blue oceans, the smell of rain, the laughter of people who no longer feared war. He wondered if he would ever see it again. The wind carried faint sounds of alien songs, deep, mournful, yet beautiful. And, as he listened, Elias realized that pain and hope sounded the same no matter the world. He whispered to himself, maybe peace isn't impossible after all. But far behind him in the shadows of the palace, Queen Zariel stood at her window, watching the small human on her balcony. Her golden eyes glowed softly in the dark. She had seen humans before, warriors, captives, ambassadors, but none like him. There was something about this one. His voice, his eyes, the way he spoke with sorrow and strength at once. For the first time in years, she felt uncertain. When the dawn came, and Elias prepared his ship for departure, the guards stood ready to escort him. The engines of the Dawn Whisper began to hum softly, glowing blue against the golden morning. Elias looked up at the rising sun of Vornikar. He felt a strange peace inside him, a quiet belief that maybe this journey had meant something. Maybe this was the beginning of change. But just as he stepped toward his ship, a voice called out behind him, firm, commanding, unmistakable. "Human," it said. Elias turned. The queen herself was standing there, surrounded by her guards, her expression unreadable. "You are not leaving yet," she said. And in that single moment, everything changed. Elias turned around slowly, surprised to see Queen Zariel herself walking toward him across the landing bay. The morning light of Vornikar fell on her silver scales, making them shimmer like molten stars. Behind her, soldiers stood in perfect silence, their armor gleaming under the twin suns. The human messenger had expected to leave quietly, unnoticed. But the queen's sudden appearance froze him where he stood. Her expression was unreadable, her golden eyes sharp and commanding. "Your Majesty," he said carefully, bowing his head. "I thought the audience was over. My duty here is complete." The queen stopped a few steps away. "Your duty, perhaps, but not your purpose." Elias frowned slightly, unsure what she meant. "I don't understand." "You will," she said. "Follow me." Without waiting for an answer, she turned and began walking toward the far end of the landing bay. Her guards moved aside, leaving a clear path. Elias hesitated only for a moment, before following her, his boots echoing softly on the polished metal floor. They entered a long corridor lined with glowing crystal veins that pulsed like living light. The air was warmer here, carrying the faint scent of spice and heat. It felt less like a palace and more like the heart of some great creature. Finally, they stepped into a large chamber filled with holographic stars. In the center hovered a map, the galaxy itself, marked with countless battle scars. Burned worlds, broken colonies, lines of war that had carved through entire systems. The queen stood before the map and looked at it quietly. Her voice, when she spoke, was low and thoughtful. "Do you know how many lives were lost, human?" Elias shook his head. "No one knows the full number." 17 billion, she said softly. 17 billion souls. My people, your people, and many others caught between us. Do you understand now why peace is not so simple? Elias looked at the stars. His chest tightened. "I understand, but that's exactly why we have to try." The queen's tail flicked slowly. "Try? You humans speak as if trying is enough. You destroy, then you rebuild. You take, then you apologize. Do you think words can heal this? Elias turned toward her, his voice trembling but firm. No, but silence won't either. Someone has to begin somewhere. If both sides wait for the other to make the first step, peace will never come. The queen studied him in silence for a long time. Then she walked closer, until she stood just a breath away from him. Her height and presence were overwhelming, but Elias did not move back. He could feel the faint warmth of her skin, hear the soft rasp of her breathing. You are not afraid, she said quietly. I've already seen death, Elias replied. I've lost everything fear could take from me. Her eyes softened just slightly and something unreadable flickered across her face. Tell me, human, why were you chosen as messenger? Elias smiled faintly, but it was a sad smile. Because I was the only one who volunteered. The queen tilted her head, surprised. You chose this? Yes, he said. Because I was tired of watching friends die for pride and flags. I wanted to do something different, something that might matter. For the first time, the queen seemed unsure. Her gaze lowered to the floor for a brief moment before she turned away and gestured to the star map again. Look, she said, this is what remains of the border between our empires. Do you see this small blue world here? Elias nodded. Yes. It was once a Threxian colony. Your forces destroyed it in the second cycle of the war. We called it Nashara, the cradle of singing stones. My daughter was. Elias froze. Your daughter? The queen's voice cracked slightly, the first sign of emotion breaking through her calm. She was barely 50 cycles, a child by our standards. I was on the command ship when the human fleet arrived. I tried to call them back to surrender the world, but the message came too late. The bombardment had already begun. Elias felt his stomach twist with guilt. I'm sorry, he whispered. If I could take that back, you cannot, the queen said, her tone suddenly sharp. No one can. That is why peace feels like an insult to me. You come here asking for forgiveness while the ashes of my bloodline still drift in space. Elias lowered his head. He had no defense, no word strong enough to erase the weight of her pain. But after a moment, he said quietly, I didn't come to ask for forgiveness. I came to stop this pain from repeating. The queen turned toward him again, her expression unreadable. And how will you stop it, human? Elias looked into her eyes. By proving that not all of us are monsters. Silence filled the chamber. The stars above them shimmered like tears in the dark. Finally, the queen spoke, her voice soft now, almost tired. You speak with a strange courage, Elias Reed. A courage that reminds me of the ones who once stood beside me in battle. Before the war took everything. She walked to a nearby platform and pressed her hand against a glowing stone. A section of the wall shifted, revealing a hidden window that looked down upon the planet's vast surface. Deserts of gold, and oceans of liquid crystal stretching beyond the horizon. Look at my world, she said. Once we were a proud and united people. Now we hide behind our strength, afraid to trust, afraid to hope. Tell me, human, what do you see? Elias stepped closer and looked out. The beauty of the world almost took his breath away. I see life, he said softly, still fighting to survive. The queen turned her gaze to him again. You truly believe we can live side by side? That humans and Threxians can look upon each other without hate? Elias nodded. I believe hate is learned, which means it can be unlearned. Her lips curved slightly, almost like a smile. Small, fleeting, but real. You speak like a dreamer. I am, Elias said. Because dreamers build what realists destroy. The queen looked at him for a long time, her golden eyes shining with something new. Not anger, not sorrow, but a quiet kind of curiosity. Then she stepped back and said, You will not depart yet, Elias Reed. He blinked. Your Majesty? I have decided, she said. You will remain here as my guest, and perhaps as my test. If your heart speaks truth, then you will help me rebuild what we have lost. Elias hesitated. Help you. Rebuild? Yes, the queen said. If you can show my people that humans can create as well as destroy, then perhaps your message will mean something. He looked at her, uncertain, but deeply moved. And if I fail? The queen's eyes glowed faintly. Then peace dies with you. For a long time, neither spoke. The only sound was the quiet hum of the star map, and the distant wind howling through the palace halls. Finally, Elias nodded slowly. Then I'll do whatever I can. The queen gave a small nod in return. We shall see, human. As she turned and walked away, Elias looked again at the stars, at the thin line between two empires that had bled for too long. He didn't know what the queen truly wanted from him. But deep inside, something told him this was only the beginning. The war might have ended. But his true mission had just begun. The dawn on Vornikar was unlike any sunrise Elias had ever seen. Two suns rose slowly above the horizon, casting golden and silver light across the city. The towers of crystal reflected the brilliance, making the whole planet shimmer like a living jewel. Yet beneath the beauty lay a quiet tension, a reminder of lives lost, battles fought, and hearts broken. Elias stood on the balcony of the Queen's palace, staring at the vast expanse below. The streets were nearly empty, the citizens cautious, their eyes wary whenever they glanced toward the palace above. He understood why. Humans had brought war. Humans had brought death. And now one human stood here attempting to bring something entirely different. Hope. His hands gripped the railing. Hope, he thought. It feels heavier than any weapon I've ever carried. A soft sound behind him made him turn. Queen Zariel stood there, her tail curling slightly, her eyes observing him with quiet intensity. She didn't speak at first. She simply watched, as if measuring the weight of the man who had come so far. You awake early, Elias said quietly, trying to hide the tension in his voice. I never sleep much, she replied, her tone almost gentle. The mind of a ruler rarely rests. And you, human? Do you sleep? Elias shook his head. Not well. Too many memories. Too many mistakes. She stepped closer, her silver scales catching the sunlight. Mistakes make you human, she said. Do you know why I did not let you leave yesterday? Elias hesitated. Because you still mistrust me? Her eyes narrowed slightly. Partly, but mostly because I do not understand your species. You are fragile, and yet you endure. You are violent, and yet capable of mercy. You are weak, and yet sometimes stronger than we are. I need to see what kind of human you truly are. Elias swallowed, feeling the weight of her words settle in his chest. Then I will show you, he said softly. I will prove that humanity can build, not just destroy. That we can heal, not just hurt. A flicker of something like approval passed across her face. Words are easy, Elias Reed. Actions, those are harder. I know, he replied. But I will try anyway. I cannot do anything else. For the next several hours, Elias walked through the city under her watchful gaze. He spoke to the citizens, not as a conqueror, not as a soldier, but as a human seeking understanding. Many looked at him with fear. Some with anger, others with curiosity. He offered no apologies, no excuses, only small gestures, helping rebuild collapsed market stalls, sharing water with children, cleaning debris from the streets. By midday, a small crowd had gathered. They whispered among themselves, watching him carefully. A mother allowed her child to touch his hand. An old Threxian man gave a nod of respect. Each small acknowledgement was like a spark in the dark. From above, the queen watched silently. Elias could feel her gaze, heavy yet not oppressive. He wondered what she was thinking. Was it trust, or merely calculation? As the suns dipped lower toward the horizon, Elias sat on the edge of a rebuilt fountain, exhausted but determined. Queen Zariel approached and sat beside him, her presence commanding yet strangely comforting. You have done more in a single day than most humans would attempt in a lifetime, she said quietly. I just wanted to show them we can try, Elias replied. His voice was low, full of fatigue. I wanted to show you we can try. The queen looked at him closely. Why do you care so much, human? Your species has already lost so many. Why risk your life for theirs? Elias paused. He looked at the city below, at the small signs of life persisting after years of war. Because if we don't try, he said slowly, then everything we lost means nothing. All the lives, all the suffering. It would be wasted. If we can do something to make it better, even a little, we have to. That's all I can do. Queen Zariel was silent for a long time. Then, unexpectedly, she reached out and rested a hand on his shoulder. The scales were surprisingly warm, almost human. You speak of hope, a concept my people have long forgotten. Perhaps it is time we remember. Elias looked at her, surprised by the gesture. You trust me? He asked quietly. I am not sure, she admitted. But trust is not given. It is built, and you may be building something I have not seen in 1,000 cycles. They watched the twin suns set, painting the city in orange and silver. The shadows were long and the streets quiet, yet the small acts of the day seemed to linger in the air like an invisible hum of possibility. Later, the queen led him back into the palace. The corridors were empty, the crystal walls glowing softly. She stopped at a chamber he had not yet seen, a room filled with ancient records of the Threxian Empire. Maps, logs, and histories from centuries past. Look here, she said, pointing to a map of burned worlds. These are the places humans attacked. These are the colonies my people lost. Every name represents a life. Every life. A story ended too soon. Elias stared at the map, a lump forming in his throat. He had seen the devastation from space, but seeing it laid out like this, names, dates, histories, made it personal. Real. I will not undo what was done, he said quietly, but I can help ensure it never happens again. I can help your people rebuild, not as conquerors, not as victims, but as partners. Queen Zariel studied him closely, her golden eyes reflecting the holographic stars of the map. Do you truly understand what that means, human? To stand beside a people who may never forgive you? To face suspicion, hatred, even death? And continue? Elias nodded. I do. And I accept it. If peace is worth anything, it must cost everything. A long silence followed. The weight of centuries pressed down on the room, on the planet, on them both. Then finally the queen spoke, her voice soft but firm. Tomorrow you will begin your work in earnest. You will not only rebuild structures, human, you will rebuild trust. And trust is harder than stone. Elias bowed his head. I will not fail, Your Majesty. You may fail, she said, but that will not stop you from trying. Perhaps that is the human way. For the first time, Elias felt a spark of something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose. He had survived war, loss, and despair. Now he had a new mission to show a proud and ancient empire that humanity could rise beyond destruction, that even a species capable of terrible violence could also choose to heal. And as he left the chamber and walked back to his temporary quarters, he felt the weight of the queen's gaze on his back, not threatening but expectant. She had chosen him to test, yes, but also, perhaps, to teach. That night, Elias stared at the twin moons of Vornikar through his window. He thought about Earth, about home, about everything he had lost. And yet, despite the pain, there was hope. Hope that one human, one small act could make a difference. Hope that a queen who had seen so much death could still believe in something better. He whispered into the quiet, I promise, I will not let this world fall. Not again. I will make them see that humanity can be more than war. I will make them see that peace is possible. And somewhere in the shadowed halls of the palace, Queen Zariel listened, her golden eyes glinting in the soft light. For the first time in many cycles, she wondered if humans might be worth trusting after all. The next morning, Elias awoke to the soft hum of the palace. The twin suns had not yet risen, but golden light was already spilling across the city. Today, he knew, would be the real test. It was one thing to speak words of peace. It was another to earn the trust of a people who had learned only war. Queen Zariel waited for him in the central courtyard. She stood tall, her silver scales shimmering like liquid metal. The guards behind her were numerous, their claws clicking against the marble. But there was something different in her posture today. A quiet observation, almost like a teacher watching a student for the first time. Today, Elias read, she said, her voice carrying across the courtyard. You will begin the work that words cannot accomplish alone. He nodded, feeling a knot tighten in his chest. I understand, Your Majesty. I am ready. Good, she replied. Then let us see if your resolve is as strong as your words. She led him down the wide stairs of the palace into the city. The streets were narrow here, older than the towers above. Buildings were cracked, markets were destroyed, and the debris of war littered the alleys. The smell of smoke and dust hung in the air. This is the district most affected by the war, the queen said. Many of these people have lost homes, families, and faith. They will not welcome you easily. Elias took a deep breath. I am not here to be welcomed. I am here to help. Their first encounter was immediate. A group of Threxian workers was clearing rubble from what had once been a marketplace. When they saw Elias, their eyes narrowed, some hands reaching for tools as if to defend themselves. "Step back," one of them growled, his golden eyes flashing. "I am here to help," Elias said, holding his hands open. "Not to fight." The queen watched silently as the tension thickened. She did not intervene. She wanted him to prove himself. Elias knelt and began clearing debris with his own hands. The work was exhausting, his muscles screaming in protest. Sweat dripped from his brow, but he did not stop. Slowly the workers hesitated, then began to watch him more closely. Hours passed. Sunlight rose higher, casting long shadows on the broken streets. Elias worked without complaint, moving rubble, repairing weak walls, and even helping carry supplies to those too weak to move themselves. One child approached him cautiously. Small, fragile, with scales still soft and new. "Are you human?" the child asked. "Yes," Elias said softly. "But I'm here to help, not hurt." The child's eyes widened. Hesitation turned to curiosity. "Then why?" "Because if we do nothing," Elias said, looking into the child's eyes, "then the world stays broken. And I can't let that happen." The child nodded slowly, a small trust forming. The workers began to relax as well. Their suspicion did not disappear completely, but it softened. Every small act of help Elias offered was a bridge, a chance to show that he was different from the humans who had brought destruction before. As the suns reached their peak, the queen approached him quietly. "You work harder than I expected," she said, "but you cannot rebuild everything alone." "I know," Elias replied, wiping sweat from his brow. "But sometimes showing that you care is enough to inspire others." She studied him closely, her golden eyes reflecting both admiration and doubt. "Do you understand the risk you take? One misstep, one act of negligence, and all of this, your trust, your message, will be destroyed." Elias looked down at his hands, cracked and dirtied from the work. "I understand, and I accept it. Trust is not given, Your Majesty. It must be earned." A few hours later, a messenger approached them, bowing deeply. "Queen Zariel, a delegation requests your presence. They insist on speaking to the human." The queen raised an eyebrow. "Very well. Show him the way." Elias followed the delegation into a small square. Here a group of older Threxians waited, survivors, elders, and veterans of the war. Their faces were lined with pain and loss. Their eyes were sharp, filled with anger, suspicion, and the weight of centuries of suffering. "You are the human who claims to bring peace," one of the elders said, his voice trembling with emotion. "Do you think a few gestures can erase the blood on your hands?" Elias met their gaze. "No, nothing can erase what was done. But I can show that we can choose differently now, that the next generations do not have to live with the hatred of the past." The elders studied him in silence. Then one stepped forward, his voice soft but piercing. "And why should we trust you? Humans are killers. You take, you destroy, you leave nothing but ruin." Elias swallowed, feeling the weight of the accusation. "Because I am one of the few who can. I am here to help rebuild, to repair, to make sure the same mistakes are never repeated. I cannot undo the past, but I can fight for the future." The elders exchanged glances, unsure what to make of him. One of the older women, her scales dark and scarred, spoke next. "You speak with courage, but courage does not feed children. Courage does not repair walls. You will need more than words to survive here." "I know," Elias said quietly, "and I will work with you. I will do everything I can alongside your people. We can rebuild together if you allow me." The elders remained silent. Then slowly, one by one, they stepped closer. Small gestures followed. An outstretched hand, a shared tool, a nod of cautious approval. Trust was fragile, but it had begun to form. Queen Zariel observed from the sidelines, her eyes thoughtful. She had not expected him to connect so quickly with her people. Perhaps humans were capable of more than destruction, she thought. Perhaps hope was not entirely lost. As the day wore on, Elias worked tirelessly. Walls were repaired, roofs patched, and the marketplace began to look alive again. Children played quietly nearby, their laughter small but real. Adults worked beside him, some offering instructions, others offering silent cooperation. By evening, the square looked transformed. Not completely restored, but alive. Life had returned. And Elias, exhausted and bruised, felt a quiet satisfaction. The queen approached him once more, standing tall in the fading light. "You have done well today," she said. You have begun to show what your kind can do, and not only to destroy but to build. But remember this, trust is not permanent. It must be nurtured every day. And every day will bring a challenge. Elias nodded. I understand, and I am ready for whatever comes. The Queen's gaze softened slightly, almost imperceptibly. You have promise, human. Do not fail. Not for yourself. Not for them. Not for me. Elias watched the sun set over the city, painting the streets in orange and gold. The buildings glimmered in the last light, and for the first time he felt that maybe, just maybe, the impossible could be achieved. He whispered to himself, I will not fail. I will protect this trust. I will prove that humans can be more than war, that we can be hope. And in the shadowed halls of the palace, Queen Zariel watched, her golden eyes reflecting both pride and caution. A human had begun to show her something she had thought impossible, that even in the aftermath of war, peace could take root, fragile but real. For Elias, this was only the beginning. The city, the people, the trust, and all were tests he would face. But he felt ready, because for the first time in a long time, he had a reason to fight that did not involve bullets or explosions. He had a reason to fight for life. The morning on Vornikar arrived quietly, yet Elias Reed felt an electricity in the air. The city had begun to awaken, its people moving slowly but purposefully, a fragile rhythm of life after years of silence and fear. He could hear the distant hum of machinery, the soft clatter of tools, and the murmurs of children playing between buildings. It was small, but it was alive, and it was because of him. Queen Zariel met him at the palace gates. Her silver scales caught the rising sun's light, making her appear even taller and more formidable than yesterday. She said nothing at first, merely watching as Elias approached. Her gaze, sharp and unyielding, pierced through him like molten steel, yet beneath it he felt something new. Perhaps curiosity, or maybe cautious hope. You worked well yesterday, she said at last. But today your resolve will be tested further. Elias nodded. I understand, Your Majesty. I am ready. Good, she replied. There is a district further south. It has been abandoned for decades. Houses half destroyed, streets blocked by rubble, and communities lost. The people there will not welcome outsiders, not even me. Elias swallowed, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He had already faced suspicion, anger, and distrust, but he knew this would be worse. This district had seen the worst of humanity's power, and yet he could not turn back. They arrived at the district, and Elias's heart sank at the sight. Buildings leaned dangerously to one side, walls crumbled, and the streets were littered with twisted metal and broken stones. The air smelled of smoke and decay. Silence hung like a thick blanket. Queen Zariel gestured for him to proceed. Show them that humans can be more than war, she said. Then perhaps some trust may bloom. Elias stepped forward. The ground beneath his boots crunched with debris. From the shadows he saw movement, figures hiding behind broken walls watching him. Their eyes glinted with fear and caution. I am here to help, he called out, his voice steady, carrying over the desolate streets. Not to fight, not to take. I am here to rebuild with you. A low growl came from the shadows. A Threxian man stepped forward, his scales dark and scarred. You speak words, he said. Words are cheap. You humans gave us only fire. Elias bowed his head respectfully. I know I cannot undo the past, but I can help shape the future. That is all I can do. The man's eyes narrowed. Then prove it. And Elias did. He moved into the streets, lifting fallen beams, clearing rubble, and repairing walls with his own hands. His muscles ached, sweat dripped down his face, and his clothes were torn and dirty. Yet he did not stop. Every small act was a message, and louder than any speech he could give. From the shadows, others began to emerge. Children, curious and timid, peeked from behind walls. Adults watched silently, some shaking their heads in disbelief. Could this human who had brought death before truly care enough to help rebuild? Hours passed. The suns climbed high in the sky, beating down on him relentlessly. Yet Elias continued. He lifted fallen beams for an elderly Threxian couple, repaired a broken fountain, and even shared food and water he had brought with him. Slowly, the people began to respond. The child who had hidden behind the wall stepped forward, offering a small stone to help repair the fountain. Adults joined in, hesitant at first, then with growing confidence. The district, once silent and abandoned, began to stir with life. Queen Zariel observed from above, her tail curling thoughtfully. She had expected him to falter. She had expected mistrust to hold stronger than hope. But she saw something remarkable. The human was not perfect, but he was persistent. He did not demand respect. He did not ask for praise. He simply worked tirelessly with a single goal: to show that humanity could create rather than destroy. By evening, the district looked different. Not fully restored, but alive. Children ran between repaired walls. Families emerged from hiding. The streets, though still scarred, carried the faint hum of laughter and conversation. Elias sat on the edge of a repaired fountain, exhausted but filled with quiet satisfaction. He looked around at the people who had begun to trust him. Not fully, not yet, but enough to allow him in their world. The queen descended the steps from her observation point. She approached him quietly, her presence as commanding as ever. "You have done well," she said softly. "You have begun to show what humans can be, Elias Reed. But there is still much to do. Trust is fragile. It can be broken in an instant." "I understand," Elias said, his voice low but firm. "And I am ready for whatever comes. I will not stop." She studied him, her golden eyes glinting in the fading light. "You carry hope like a flame, human. Do you know how rare that is? Among both your species and mine." "I do," he replied. "And I will protect it." A small silence settled between them, filled only by the distant sounds of the newly awakened district. Then unexpectedly the queen spoke again. "Tell me, Elias," she said, her voice softer now, almost personal. "Do you truly believe your kind can change? That humans can rise above what they have done?" Elias thought of Earth, of the wars, the suffering, and the countless mistakes his species had made. He thought of the friends he had lost, the cities he had seen destroyed, and the faces of children who would never laugh again. "Yes," he said finally, his voice steady despite the exhaustion. "I believe that if even one human can choose to do better, others will follow. Change begins with a single act, and I intend to be that act." The queen nodded slowly, her expression unreadable but thoughtful. "Perhaps you are right. Perhaps your species is worth more than the destruction it has caused. But you must prove it every day, human. Every day." Elias stood, brushing the dust from his clothes. "I will, I swear it. I will not let the past define us. I will help your people, build trust, and show that peace is stronger than hatred." She looked at him for a long moment. Then almost imperceptibly she nodded. "Then we begin together. But remember, the path of peace is not without danger. Some will not welcome you. Some will resist. Some will test your resolve, and some may try to end it before it begins." Elias met her gaze without fear. "Let them come. I will face them. I am no longer a soldier fighting for war. I fight for life. I fight for hope, and I will not fail." The queen's eyes softened slightly. "Your resolve is remarkable, human. Perhaps your kind deserves a chance after all." As the sun set behind the golden and silver spires of Vornikar, Elias stood in the center of the district, surrounded by people who were beginning to believe in him. The streets were still damaged, the buildings still scarred, but life had returned. And with it, a fragile spark of hope. For the first time in a long time, Elias felt something he had not felt in years. Purpose. The purpose of a man who had seen death, destruction, and despair, yet refused to let it define the future. And as he looked toward the palace, he knew that Queen Zariel was watching him, still testing, still observing. But he no longer felt fear. He felt determination. The mission was no longer just a duty. It had become a promise that humanity could rise above its past, a promise that peace was possible, and a promise that no matter the cost, he would never stop fighting for it. The morning air on Vornikar was sharp and clear, carrying the scent of metal and ozone. Elias Reed walked through the palace gardens, his hands clasped behind his back. The flowers were strange and radiant, glowing faintly with life unlike anything on earth. Birds with feathers of silver and violet chirped softly in the branches, their songs melodic yet alien. Yet Elias could not enjoy the beauty. His mind was focused on the task ahead. The queen had summoned him last night with an urgent message. The peace he had begun to foster would face its first real challenge today. "They will test you," Queen Zariel had said, her voice calm but cold. They will try to break your resolve to see if your heart is true. Not all Threxians trust easily, human. Some never will. Elias nodded quietly, understanding the weight of her words. Trust was fragile. One wrong move could undo everything he had worked for. The first challenge came sooner than he expected. A small convoy approached the palace gates. Threxian military officers, their armor gleaming, eyes hard and unyielding. They had fought in the war. They had lost family, homes, and comrades, and now they were here to test the human who dared to claim peace. "You are Elias Reed?" one of them demanded, his voice sharp and commanding. "The human who seeks to teach us trust? To rebuild what we ourselves cannot?" Elias bowed respectfully. "I am, and I am here to help. Not to command. Not to interfere. Only to serve alongside you." The officers exchanged glances. One stepped forward, a scar running down his face, his eyes filled with suspicion. "Many humans speak of peace. Few act with it. We need proof. Actions, not words." Elias met his gaze steadily. "Then test me. Judge me by what I do, not by what I say. I will not falter." The officer's eyes narrowed. "Very well. You will accompany us to the southern districts. A patrol was ambushed yesterday. A human ship was caught in the skirmish. You will lead us there and ensure no further loss occurs." Elias's chest tightened. He had expected suspicion, perhaps even anger. But this was more than he had imagined. The southern districts were still dangerous, remnants of war scattered like wounds across the land. Yet he did not hesitate. "I understand," he said quietly. "Lead the way." The journey was long and tense. The streets were narrow and twisted, many of them blocked by rubble. The air smelled faintly of burnt metal and dust. As they walked, the officers observed him closely, their eyes sharp, their claws occasionally tapping impatiently against their armor. Finally, they reached the ambush site. Broken ships and ruined vehicles littered the ground. The remnants of a human vessel lay twisted and smoking, its hull scorched by energy fire. Elias felt a pang of guilt as he stepped closer. "I know this pain," he said softly. "I have seen worlds destroyed, families lost. But I promise, I will do everything I can to prevent it from happening again." The officers watched, silent. Then one spoke, his voice low. "Words again. Will they save lives?" Elias knelt beside the wreckage. He assessed the situation quickly, noting what could be salvaged and what needed to be cleared to prevent further accidents. With the officers' grudging cooperation, he organized the recovery effort. Hours passed. Sweat dripped from his brow. His hands were scraped and burned from lifting debris. But slowly the wreckage was cleared, the injured treated, and the path secured. The officers remained skeptical, yet they could not deny the effectiveness of his actions. Elias did not seek recognition or praise. He worked tirelessly, his every move demonstrating that he valued life above pride, cooperation above dominance. By the time the twin suns were high in the sky, the area was safe. The officers gathered around him, their expressions unreadable. "You have done well," the scarred officer said finally. "But know this, trust is earned in the long term. One day of work does not erase centuries of pain." Elias nodded. "I understand." "I am not here to erase the past, only to build a better future." The officer's gaze softened slightly. "Then perhaps we shall see if your resolve holds." Elias felt a small spark of hope. It was not complete trust, but it was a beginning. As they returned to the palace, Elias could sense the eyes of the queen following him. He felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. Had he passed her test? Or was this only the first of many? Later that evening, the queen summoned him to a private chamber. The walls glowed softly, illuminated by the pulsing light of the crystal veins embedded within. Elias entered, bowing his head. "You have performed admirably today," the queen said, her golden eyes assessing him. "You faced suspicion, danger, and the lingering anger of my people. Yet you persevered. That is unusual for your kind." "I did what I had to do," Elias replied. "Not for praise, not for recognition. I did it because it was the right thing to do." The queen studied him, her expression thoughtful. "Many humans speak of morality, yet few act upon it when it costs them. You are different. Perhaps your species has more potential than I believed." Elias felt a surge of determination. "I will continue to prove it. Every day. No matter the cost," her eyes softened slightly. "The cost will be great. You will face challenges that test your spirit, your strength, and your patience. Some will try to sway you, others may attempt to destroy what you have built. But you must endure. Endurance is what separates those who succeed from those who fail. I will endure, Elias said firmly. I will not give up. For a long moment the queen said nothing, merely observing him. Then she spoke, her voice low and measured. Elias Reed, you carry the future of both our peoples in your hands. Your actions today have shown promise, but remember this. The path of peace is never simple. It demands sacrifice, courage, and unwavering resolve. I understand, Your Majesty, Elias replied, and I accept it. Whatever comes, I will not falter. I will protect the trust placed in me, and I will ensure that hope survives. The queen inclined her head. Very well. Rest tonight, human. Tomorrow your next challenge awaits. And remember, even the smallest flame can ignite a star. Elias left the chamber, feeling a quiet strength settle within him. The day had tested him, yet he had endured. He had faced suspicion, danger, and doubt, and he had emerged stronger. He looked out over the city from the palace balcony, the twin moons beginning to rise. Below, the streets hummed with life, small and fragile but unmistakable. Children played. Families spoke quietly. Life had returned, even in the smallest corners, and Elias knew this was only the beginning. He whispered to himself, I will protect them. I will not fail. I will show that humanity can rise above war, that we can be more than destruction, that hope will endure. Somewhere in the shadowed halls, Queen Zariel watched him, her golden eyes thoughtful. For the first time, she wondered if humans might truly be capable of something more than she had ever imagined. Elias had proven his courage today, but the true test of his loyalty, his spirit, and his humanity was only beginning. The messenger had survived the first trial. Now, he would face the trials to come. The twin sons of Vornikar had barely risen when Elias Reed stood once again on the palace balcony. The city below stirred with cautious life. Children ran along the repaired streets, laughter faint but real. Adults moved with purpose, carrying tools and supplies, rebuilding not only structures but trust. Elias had done everything he could to prove that humanity could create, could care, and could endure. Every brick replaced, every hand offered, every effort made to show that humans could be more than war. And yet as he stared at the horizon, he felt a strange unease settle into his chest. He had come as a messenger, a bridge between two worlds. He had imagined that one day soon his mission would end and he would return home to Earth. That day had not come. Elias. He turned. Queen Zariel had appeared silently, as she often did. Her golden eyes held a weight he could not name. Pride, worry, something deeper, something almost human. I was about to leave, he said quietly. I thought, after today, perhaps my work here was done. The queen's gaze did not waver. And yet you do not leave. Elias hesitated. I thought I had done enough. I thought, perhaps it was time to return to my people, to my world. She walked closer, her tail curling behind her like a living shadow. You are not finished, human. Not yet. There is more to be done. More lives to touch, more trust to build, and you have not yet seen what your presence can truly achieve. He swallowed. Then what do you want from me? Not what I want, she said softly, but what the people need. Your kind can teach my people to hope again. You can show them that life is stronger than hate. And in that, you cannot leave. Elias felt a lump form in his throat. He had come to this world to deliver a message, to bridge a chasm of fear and bloodshed, and now that mission had grown into something he had never imagined. A bond with a people who had once seen humans only as enemies. He began, struggling for words. I never imagined that they would trust me, that I could make a difference, that I could belong here even for a little while. The queen's gaze softened. You belong, Elias Reed, perhaps more than anyone else could. You are not only a messenger of words, you are a messenger of hope, and hope is not something that can be sent and forgotten. It must live, it must breathe. You are its keeper here. Elias swallowed hard. He thought of the children he had seen playing in the streets, the elders who had cautiously begun to nod in his presence, the workers who had once hidden from him but now labored at his side. He thought of the small spark of life he had helped reignite, and how fragile it all still was. I cannot fail them, he said quietly. Not now. You will not, the queen replied. I will stand with you, but you must lead. You must show them that a human can be more than destruction. That trust can be built from patience, from courage, from unwavering commitment. That is your task, Elias, and your choice is clear. Elias looked down at the city below, at the lives he had touched, at the fragile beginnings of something new, and in that moment he understood. Leaving was no longer an option. The mission that had begun as duty had become purpose. It had become life itself. I will stay, he said finally. I will stay and do everything I can to protect this trust, this hope. Whatever it takes, for as long as it is needed. The queen studied him, her golden eyes reflecting both the light of the rising suns and something deeper, a rare, almost imperceptible warmth. Then stay, she said softly. Stay and help my people rise again. And perhaps together, we will forge a future that neither our species could have imagined. The day passed with quiet purpose. Elias walked among the citizens, now no longer just a messenger, but a leader in their eyes. He helped repair homes, organize supplies, and guide workers in rebuilding efforts. He listened to their stories, shared in their fears, and offered comfort when words were not enough. Each act, small or large, carried the weight of promise. By evening, the city glowed under the twin moons. Lanterns cast soft light across repaired streets. Children's laughter echoed faintly, and the hum of life thrummed through every corner. Elias stood once again on the balcony, looking over the world he had chosen to protect. Queen Zariel joined him silently. Do you see it, human? She asked. The change that has begun? The lives that now believe in something beyond fear? Elias nodded. Yes, and it is more than I ever imagined. You have done this, she said. Not with power, not with weapons, but with something rarer, with heart. You have shown us that humanity can rise above its past, and in doing so, you have risen above it as well. Elias felt a surge of emotion. He had been a messenger, a bridge, a witness to destruction, and now he had become something more, a symbol of hope, a living proof that humans could choose creation over destruction, life over war. I never thought I could matter so much, he said quietly. I never thought that one person, one human, could make a difference here. The queen's gaze softened, her voice low and almost tender. You do matter, Elias Reed, perhaps more than you will ever know. And perhaps that is the lesson both our peoples needed to learn, that hope, courage, and trust can endure, even in the darkest of times. Elias closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of the world settle on his shoulders. It was heavy, yes, but not unbearable. It was a responsibility he had chosen, a path he could not abandon. And then, he opened his eyes. Queen Zariel, he said quietly, I promise you, I will not leave. I will not abandon them. I will stay and I will protect this hope, this trust. I will prove that humanity can be more than war, that we can be guardians, builders, and friends. I swear it. The queen inclined her head, a rare and almost imperceptible smile gracing her face. Then you are exactly where you are meant to be, human, and I will watch and learn from you as you lead my people toward what was once thought impossible. Below, the city hummed with life. The streets glimmered faintly under the twin moons. Children played. Families talked.